Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are now on page 439, The Cosmic Illusion, beginning with the sentence, "But the subconscious is not our sole dream builder." We have read it last week, and today Ranga will give us the explanation.
I read each sentence. Okay? But the subconscious is not our sole dream builder. So, when you are sleeping, then your consciousness, the waking consciousness, is subdued, and your consciousness goes inwards or even goes outwards, out of your body. And then there are realities there in the other worlds, and they get translated as dreams for you. And if you go sufficiently deep, you will not remember the dreams. But if the consciousness is not going in a very deep manner and goes only into the shallows of your inner consciousness, then you remember the dream. Okay, so the subconscious in us is the extreme border of our secret inner existence, where it meets the inconscient, and it's a degree of our being in which the inconscient struggles into a half consciousness. We'll go phrase by phrase. So, your waking consciousness is only a small percentage of your total consciousness. Last time we discussed that our consciousness is something which includes the whole cosmos. We have the superconscient above us. It is there, but it is in abeyance. It is sleeping. There is the intraconscient, there is the subconscient, there is the inconscient, and there is also the world around us, the environment, which Swamitra calls the circumconscient. So this is what we are. So when we are awake, our consciousness is limited only to the surface. But when we sleep, the consciousness migrates into other areas, and those subtle realities get translated as dreams. You may not remember them, or you may remember them. You remember normally the shallow areas into which you have gone, into these various fields. Or if you go deeper into these fields, then you very unlikely that you will remember.
But most of the time, these are superficial experiences.
Yes, that's right. So that, Swamitra will explain. We'll have a look at all this, what he's saying. So, he has explained to you very clearly what the subconscious is. It's a semi-consciousness, it's an inconscient trying to become conscient, and before it becomes the waking state, it becomes the subconscient. So the subconscient is a halfway mark between the inconscient and the waking consciousness. Okay? Your waking consciousness also is not something very deep. The superconscient, when you go into the spiritual planes of consciousness, that is where the consciousness is really much purer and much more powerful and much wider. Okay, so the surface physical consciousness also, when it sinks back from the waking level and retrogresses towards the inconscient, retires into this intermediate subconscious. Very clear. When you are sleeping, the waking consciousness is now sleeping, and you go down into the subconscious normally. Okay? Or from another point of view, from another viewpoint, this nether part of us may be described as an antechamber of the inconscient, through which its formations rise into our waking or our subliminal being. So, the subliminal being is that which is horizontally deep in yourself. So, if you want to, I'll make a gesture, then it will become clear. When you go down the subconscious and even more down the inconscient, but it can also go, it's the antechamber, Swamitra is saying. It's one of the chambers, antechamber, the intraconscient or the subliminal. Swamitra is using the word subliminal here. Subliminal means below the surface. So that is the intraconscient. And when you go even higher up, that becomes the superconscient. So all these are connected fields. They are not unconnected fields at all. They are all connected, but with transitional points between them. Okay. When we sleep, and the surface physical part of us, which is in its first origin here, an output from the inconscient, relapses towards the originating inconscience. It enters into the subconscious element, antechamber or substratum, and there it finds the impressions of its past or persistent habits of mind and experiences. I'll finish the para and then we'll see. For all have left their mark on our subconscious part and have there a power of recurrence. Now, you can describe the subconscious also like a pond, okay? And if you throw anything into it, a stone or whatever, it goes down, it doesn't disappear. So in other words, whatever you are experiencing, consciously or unconsciously, goes down into your subconscious and remains there. And when your consciousness goes into and touches the subconscious, these things can recur.
This is very common.
Yeah. So, this is what the Freud's psychology used to interpret the dreams. So, when you are dreaming, these things which are there below, of which you are not fully conscious, they come up to the surface. And he examined those dreams and came to conclusions about the nature of the illness that the person had. He was basically a doctor. But the interpretation is not always right. For the interpretation, you have to go to the spiritual level of consciousness where your interpretation is cannot be erroneous. So unless you are a spiritual person, your interpretations are likely to be wrong. Okay.
And Sri Aurobindo says this about
Oh
Freud.
yes. So, when we sleep, and not only that, the interpretation of dreams is very interesting because there are symbols. And there are three types of symbols. There are symbols which are universal. Like for instance, if you are climbing a mountain, it's very obviously a symbol of your going to a higher level of consciousness. Okay? Or if you going on a road and there is an obstruction, it's a difficulty that you have to face. So these are symbols which are universal.
And if you're waiting for a train and you miss the train,
that also is a symbol
yes,
which you have to understand, you have to interpret correctly. Then there are other symbols which are conventional symbols. That means to say, man has given a meaning to the symbol. A good example of this is the traffic light. A green light means you are now allowed to go. And a red light means you have to stop. This is a conventional symbol. It is you are interpreting that in that way. Okay? It's a meaning that you have given. So there are universal symbols, there are conventional symbols, and there are individual symbols. The individual symbols, for instance, I will give you an example of what an individual symbol can be. Okay? I have a friend who is very, let us say, he is very excitable and gets angry very quickly. Okay? So if I dream that he is suddenly dead, it means to say, if interpreted correctly, that the anger in me, my excitability, is disappearing slowly. So this is an individual symbol. So three types of symbols. I don't know if Freud had all these ideas, but certainly has given these symbols. So you have to interpret correctly. It's quite a complicated thing, and it's not always right. Okay. I think in some cases he did get it right, and he succeeded in curing some diseases in people. But he also got it wrong because he paid too much attention to the sexual aspect of dreams. He put too much attention on the sex, Whereas that's not true, because you are not only that, there are so many other elements in you. Okay? So, clear? Your waking consciousness in sleep goes into abeyance, and you are going down and you enter the subconscious, where very often the dreams are chaotic. But if you go into your intraconscious, what Sri is calling the subliminal, there the dreams have significances. So, we will read the next sentence and we will see now what he is saying. Now, look at that phrase, for all have left their mark on our subconscious part and have there a power of recurrence. Okay? So, in other words, suppose I am going now, I am here in Matri Sadan and I will be going home, and on the way I meet somebody and he stops me and talks to me, it will go into my subconscious. While I am talking to him, a dog may be barking in the corner, I am not paying any attention to it, but that also will go into my subconscious. And they can become dreams. They come up. So, this is what it is. Now, power of recurrence is very interesting. If you compare the word habit, okay, a habit is a power of recurrence, it is happening all the time. So, it is this that comes from the subconscious. All habits come from the subconscious. So, you can put into your subconscious good habits, and then it becomes a huge powerful thing. So, the subconscious with its power of recurrence is a great help it can be in your. So, that is why there is a sadhana of sleep also. How to consciously put in things and how to not get chaotic dreams, but meaningful dreams. Okay? There is a whole process for that. I read the next sentence. In its effect on our waking self, this recurrence often takes the form of a reassertion of old habits, impulses dormant or suppressed, rejected elements of the nature, or it comes up as some other not easily recognizable, some peculiar disguised or subtle result of these suppressed or rejected but not erased impulses or elements. Now, that is very interesting what Shamli is saying. Suppose you are doing sadhana, or you have without sadhana also some old habits disappear. Let us say smoking. Okay? So, if you have managed to get rid of your smoking, has it really gone? No, it has gone into your subconscious. Okay? If you reject it from there, it goes into your inconscient. Nothing disappears ever. It very clearly in the Gita it says that those things which are there in existence can never disappear. And those things which are not in existence can never appear in existence. Existence is something complete by itself, so it never disappears. It only gets rearranged or goes somewhere else. It's a well-known thing that all the defects that you are rejecting from yourself, they go down into the subconscious and they lodge there, and then they go even further down when you reject them, but they remain as seeds in the inconscient. They can always recur. And that's what happens in your yoga. Say, suppose you have got rid of your, as I said, habit of smoking. I have a friend who is a chain smoker. Okay? Then one day I have a dream and I see that my friend who had died is now again coming alive, and I ask him, how is it that you are alive? Okay? It's a symbol that my anger may again come up. So, this is how you see images that are there, they can keep coming up from there. And they have significances. Okay, so, so Sri is saying very clearly, you have suppressed those habits, but they are rejected, but not erased impulses or elements. They have not been erased, they have only been put into the subconscious, from which they can always rise up again.
Mother could take them completely away?
Pardon?
Could Mother take them completely away?
Nobody can take them away completely. They'll go down and remain in seed form. But once it becomes a seed form, that is the reason why Sri Aurobindo was digging into his inconscient to clear it and put light into it. So if you put light into it, that's the poem God's labor.
Yes.
I have been digging deep and long, see, mire and filth and all that he says very clearly. So that's what he's doing. He's clearing the subconscious so that the old habits cannot again come up. What you have rejected will remain permanently rejected if you transform your subconscious.
But it's still there.
It is there even deeper down, from where it can't come up. Okay? So that's what he's explaining. In a dream consciousness, the phenomenon is an apparently fanciful construction, a composite of figures and movements built upon or around the buried impressions with a sense in them that escapes the waking intelligence because it has no clue to the subconscious system of significances. You don't know what this symbolizes. Okay, so after a time, this subconscious activity appears to sink back into complete inconscience, and we speak of this state as deep, dreamless sleep. Thence, we emerge again into the dream shadows or return to the waking surface. So you have there several layers which Ranganath is describing. The subliminal, the subconscious, then the dream shallows, where you are, you could say in a certain way, half awake. The dream shallows. And when you wake up, you remember the dream. Or waking surface. When you are in the waking surface, you may remember your dream, you may not remember your dream. Sri Ranganath is discussing the applicability of dream to Shankara's image of dream being an illusion similar to the spiritual experience of seeing the physical world as unreal. Okay, so this is what Sri Ranganath is saying. Okay, in other words, all dreams are not fanciful constructions only, but they can have significance also. We read the next para.
Good.
I'll read the whole para first and then we'll come back to it. But in fact, in what we call dreamless sleep, we have gone into a profounder and denser layer of the subconscious, a state too involved, too immersed, or too obscure, dull and heavy to bring to the surface its structures, and we are dreaming there but unable to grasp or retain in the recording layer of subconscious these more obscure dream figures. It depends on how deep you go into your subconscious. If you go too deep and not the dream shallows, then you won't remember. Okay? Or else, it may be the part of our mind which still remains active in the sleep of the body has entered into the inner domains of our being, the subliminal mental, subliminal vital, the subtle physical, and there is lost to all active connection with the surface parts of us. So now he is introduced the subliminal. We have to understand what the subliminal is. So you have a surface mind, a surface vital, and a surface physical. But in the intraconscient, okay, there is the inner mind, which is 10 times more powerful than your normal mind. There is the inner vital and there is the inner physical. The inner physical is the subtle physical. And we can also travel into these areas. Okay? Then behind this is the subliminal, and behind that is the psychic being. Psychic being is deep in the intraconscient.
So the psychic being is after the
Inner being.
inner being.
Yeah. Very deep inside. Okay? So, or else it may be the part of our mind which still remains active in the sleep of the body has entered into the inner domains of our being, the subliminal mental, the subliminal vital, the subtle physical, and is there lost to all active connection with the surface parts of us. If we are still in the nearer depths of these regions, he is now using the word nearer depths. In the earlier he has used the word dream shallows. Okay? If you are still in the nearer depths of these regions, the surface subconscious, which is our sleep wakefulness records, something of what we experience in these depths, something of what we experience in these depths is recorded. That's what he's saying. Okay.
Yeah, it records something.
Yeah. And when it is recorded, you remember. Yeah. But if it is too deep down, it is recorded, but you don't remember when you come up. Okay, so if we are still in the nearer depths of these regions, the surface subconscious, which is our sleep wakefulness, records something of what we experience in these depths. But it records it in its own transcription, often marred by characteristic incoherences, and always, even when most coherent, deformed and cast into figures drawn from the world of waking experience. So they become symbols, and you have no clue as to what these symbols are, then you don't understand the dream. They give the impression of being a chaotic incoherence. Okay? Animals can talk, plants can walk, all these type of incoherences can happen. Okay, so a dog can turn into a cat, all sorts of things can happen. So, characteristic incoherences, and always, even when most coherent, deformed or cast into figures drawn from the world of waking experience. This is where symbols come in. So this phrase, cast into figures drawn from the world of waking experience, you could have used the word symbols. They become symbolic. But if we have gone deeper inward, the record fails and cannot be recovered, and we have the illusion of dreamlessness, depending on how deep your consciousness has gone. Okay, so. But the activity of the inner dream consciousness continues behind the veil of the now mute and inactive subconscious surface. This continued dream activity is revealed to us when we become more inwardly conscious, for then we get into connection with the heavier and deeper subconscious stratum and can be aware at the time, or by retracing or recovery through memory, of what happened when we sank into these turbid depths. Now this is what hypnotism tries to uncover. So sometimes if you don't remember your dream, suppose you have a problem, okay? We'll take a very easy example. You have a problem of fear of heights or fear of water. Okay. So the hypnotist will try to find out why, from where is this fear of water or height coming. Fear of height is not uncommon, vertigo. And fear of water also is there in many cases. People are afraid to cross a bridge because they are afraid of water. So what the subconscious the hypnotist will do, he will ask you to, first he'll put you to sleep. Then he will tell you to go into your interconscious and explain what you are experiencing. So he will suggest to you, and by the way, you can't be hypnotized unless you agree to be passive and obey him. So if you agree to obey him, he will tell you, I'll count up to 10 and you will fall asleep. So if you have got a very strong will and you don't want to listen to him, you cannot be hypnotized. Okay? I've heard of many cases like that. But if you are willing, because you want to cure yourself, so you are willing and you say, okay. So when he says, I'll count 10 and you will fall asleep, you really will fall asleep. But part of you is listening to his instructions and you will continue to obey him. So he'll say, now, you are now 20 years old, but now I'll regress you to when you are 15 years old. Now, see what are you experiencing. So you will say what you are experiencing. If he finds any interesting incident there, he has a clue to what is your problem. Or he will say, if he doesn't find anything, he'll tell you go back to 10 years old. Okay? And there he keep regressing you like this until he finds the clue to your fear.
Can a hypnotist take one into past lives?
That's exactly what I'm going to tell you. Okay? So, suppose he doesn't find anything even when you are 10 years old, he will take you to when you are 5 years old, and he will take you to when you are 2 years old. But instead of going into 2-year-old, you will go into your past life, because that also is recorded. So this happens.
Is hypnotism then a good thing?
Oh yeah, no, good means there are a lot of things which wrong interpretation, then also the hypnotist can misuse you. He can suggest to you things which he wants done. So that's why it is now not very much encouraged. And there is another thing now that has come up. Why do you want a hypnotist to hypnotize you? Why don't you hypnotize yourself? Put good thoughts into yourself. So that also is there nowadays. In fact, there are even tapes which teach you how to hypnotize yourself. Somebody had come here to Pondicherry also in one of the hotels. There was a session like that. Okay. So, this is what, so it can. You can regress into a past life and then you will start speaking a language which you don't even know. In one case, there was a person who started speaking Hebrew. An English-speaking person started speaking Hebrew. In waking life, he has no idea of Hebrew. So it can happen. Okay? And that is how they discovered that reincarnation is a fact. This is what happened with, I think there are many who research. There is one called Brian Weiss. He is quite, he is well-known researcher. But this, they discovered reincarnation in the West, not in India. In India it was always known. But in the West it was discovered that reincarnation is a fact, because this is what happened. Okay, so now we come back to our text. This continued dream activity is revealed to us when we become more inwardly conscious, for then we get into connection with the heavier and deeper subconscious stratum and can be aware at the time or by retracing or recovering through memory of what happened when we sank into these torpid depths. So this is exactly what can happen. Okay? It can be exploited by yourself or it can be exploited also by others. Incidentally, when the psychic comes forward, you get the capacity to remember your dreams, and there is a great amount of guidance given through dreams. Your own psychic will tell you what is happening through symbols. And you get the power also to interpret the symbols. Sometimes you don't get the power to, you don't understand something. For instance, you are seeing a dream, recurring dream. And when a dream recurs, there is a message being transmitted to you. It's not a chaotic thing. When it goes on repeating, there is a message which your inner being is trying to give to you. And suddenly, if you are reading Srivdo or you are reading something else, you get a hint suddenly of what that symbol means. Okay? So, I'll give you one example. One person is seeing constantly a locomotive, a railway locomotive. Constantly he is seeing this. Repeatedly. He couldn't understand what is happening. Okay? But then one day, he came Srivdo using the same image. And then when he read the text, he knew what it represented. Okay? So, so dreams are something very real. That's what Srivdo is coming to. Okay? So, it is possible to become conscious deeper within our subliminal selves, and we are then aware of experiences on other planes of our being, or even in supraphysical worlds to which sleep gives us a right of secret entry. So, in your sadhana, when you become more conscious of your deeper layers, okay, you can remember all these things, and you can go also into these in trance. Even if you are in waking consciousness, you can put your consciousness deep in, and it will go into these deeper layers. And there, they are real, they are not unreal, these experiences. Okay, so It is possible too to become conscious deeper within our subliminal selves, and we are then aware of experiences on other planes of our being or even in supraphysical worlds to which sleep gives us a right of secret entry. A transcript of such experiences reaches us, but the transcriber here is not the subconscious, it is a subliminal, a greater dream builder. So the subliminal or the intraconscious is a greater dream builder, and there it is not chaotic but very often very, very meaningful.
I have a personal question.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm writing a poem, I use the word I very carefully because they seem to just come down and they speak of other worlds where I have been.
Yes.
Is that subliminal?
Yes, that's subliminal. Or it could be even supraphysical, let's say.
Or superphysical?
Not subliminal. Subliminal is horizontal. Supraphysical is vertical, above.
Ah.
So it comes from there. Inspiration often comes from there, particularly for poets. Okay, I have examples of some children who write poems, but they don't know from where they are coming. They just come automatically, it comes down.
Yes.
I go to the next para. This is the third para we are doing today. If the subliminal thus comes to the front in our dream consciousness, there is sometimes an activity of our subliminal intelligence. Dream becomes a series of thoughts, often strangely and vividly figured. Problems are solved which our waking consciousness could not solve. Warnings, premonitions, indications of the future, veridical dreams replace the normal subconscious incoherence. Okay? There can come also a structure of symbol images, some of a mental character, some of a vital nature. The former are precise in their figures, clear in their significance. The latter are often complex and baffling to our waking consciousness. But if we can seize the clue, they reveal their own sense and peculiar system of coherence. Finally, there can come to us the records of happenings seen or experienced by us on other planes of our being or of universal being into which we entered. These have sometimes, like symbolic dreams, a strong bearing on our inner and outer life or the life of others, reveal elements of our or their mental being and life being, or disclose influences on them of which our waking self is totally ignorant. So, if you are sufficiently developed in consciousness, you can see things which pertain to your future or other people's future also. That's what he's saying. Okay, so but sometimes they have no such bearing and are purely records of other organized systems of consciousness independent of our physical existence. The subconscious dreams constitute the bulk of our most ordinary sleep experience, and they are those which we usually remember. Okay? The subconscious ones, which are chaotic. That's what he's saying. But constitute the bulk of our most ordinary sleep experience, and they are those which we usually remember. But sometimes the subliminal builder is able to impress our sleep consciousness sufficiently to stamp its activities on our waking memory. If we develop our inner being, live more inwardly than most men do, then the balance is changed and a larger dream consciousness opens before us. Our dreams can take on a subliminal and no longer a subconscious character, and can assume a reality and significance. So he has told you very clearly, if your consciousness is sufficiently developed, even if you go into the deeper layers, you can get meaningful dreams, you can get premonitions, and you will know what's going to happen in future also. Okay, so those things can also come. They can come for the individual, they can come for other individuals, or they can come also as happenings in general. All this can happen. So, I go to the next para. It is even possible to become wholly conscious in sleep and follow throughout from beginning to end or over large stretches these stages of our dream experience. It is found that then we are aware of ourselves passing from state after state of consciousness to a brief period of luminous and peaceful dreamless rest, which is a true restorer of the energies of the waking nature, and then returning by the same way to the waking consciousness. Mother has spoken about this as 10 minutes of sleep, conscious sleep, where that is really the energy revival. It takes place at that level. Most of the other dreams are sometimes, they don't give you rest, but these 10 minutes will give you rest. Okay? So, and then returning by the same way to the waking consciousness. It is normal, as we thus pass from state to state, to let the previous experiences slip away from us. In the return only, the more vivid or those nearest to the waking surface are remembered. But this can be remedied. A greater retention is possible, or the power can be developed of going back in memory from dream to dream, from state to state, till the whole is at once more before us. A coherent knowledge of sleep life, though difficult to achieve or to keep established, is possible. So you can become fully conscious of your dream states. That's what Shanti is saying. So the dream is not an unreality. It's very often a reality. Our subliminal self is not, like our surface physical being, an outcome of the energy of the inconscient. It is a meeting place of the consciousness that emerges from below by evolution and the consciousness that has descended from above for involution. I'll read the whole para and then we'll come back. Okay? There is in it an inner mind, an inner vital being of ourselves, an inner or subtle physical being larger than our own outer being and nature. This inner existence is a concealed origin of almost all in our surface self that is not a construction of the first inconscient world energy or a natural developed functioning of our surface consciousness or a reaction of it to impacts from the outside universal nature. And even in this construction, these functionings, these reactions, the subliminal takes part and exercises on them a considerable influence. I am reading the whole para. There is here a consciousness which has a power of direct contact with the universal, unlike the mostly indirect contacts which our surface being maintains with the universe through the sense mind and the senses. There are here inner senses, a subliminal sight, touch, hearing. But these subtle senses are rather channels of the inner being's direct consciousness of things than its informants. This is very interesting what he's saying. We'll have to go more into detail. I'll finish the para and then we'll come back to it. The subliminal is not dependent on its senses for its knowledge. They only give a form to its direct experience of objects. They do not, so much as in waking mind, convey forms of objects for the mind's documentation or as a starting point or basis of an indirect constructive experience. The subliminal has a right of entry into the mental and vital and subtle physical planes of the universal consciousness. It is not confined to the material plane and the physical world. It possesses means of communication with the worlds of being, which the descent towards the involution created in its passage, and with all the corresponding planes or words that may have arisen or being constructed to serve the purpose of the re-ascent from inconscience to superconscious. It is into this large realm of interior existence that our mind and vital being retire when they withdraw from the surface activities, whether by sleep or inward drawn concentration or by the inner plunge of trance. I'll just give a hint and then we'll stop and we'll redo this para next time.
Okay.
So what he is saying is here that there are 4 types of knowledge available to man, the 4 processes of knowledge. The first process is what he calls indirect separative knowledge. Indirect separative knowledge. What he means is, I am seeing you and I can get knowledge of what you are doing or what you are speaking indirectly and separative. What does it mean is, I am seeing you through my senses. The senses are coming in between you and me. So it is indirect, not direct. Secondly, you are yourself. You are separate from me. So this is the first. You can call it indirect separative knowledge is sense knowledge. Knowledge given to you by the senses. Second is direct separative knowledge. Direct separative knowledge is what he is talking about in this para. That's what I wanted to go into detail. So direct means I go into my intraconscious while I am awake. I am not using my senses. My consciousness is going deep inside and I have gone to subliminal. I can contact your consciousness by my consciousness. So now I don't need my senses. If I am in that condition, I can have direct but separative. In other words, even if you are calm, but you are disturbed inside and you are angry with something, I can see your anger even though it does not show on your face. So this is direct separative knowledge. Clear? Now, the third one is direct non-separative knowledge. That means identification. I become you and then I know exactly what you are. So these are the, and there is a fourth one, which the third one is the direct non-separative knowledge by identity, which is a little defective. But the perfect identity is at the highest level. These are the 4 types of knowledge that you get.
And Mother had the 4th. She could see
Oh
everything.
yes, there is no doubt about that. So, she could identify herself with you and know your problem and help you. So this is all, there is this intraconscient. So we'll look into this and give examples of that. We'll do that next time.
Good. Namaste all. And thank you, Ranga, for this very illuminating talk. See you next week.